A mentor of mine said something to me early on that I never forgot. If you want a life most people don't have, you have to be willing to do things most people won't. It sounds simple, but most people hear that and think it means working harder or longer. That's not what it means. It means making different decisions at the moments that matter consistently over a long enough period of time that the results become impossible to ignore. So that's why I'm going to share 7 things that hold most people back from building real wealth. Things I have simply out over and over again in my own life and in the lives of people around me. The first one is working only for money. This is the trap most people walk into without realizing it. You take a job or start a project that pays well but teaches you nothing. The money feels good at first, but your earning potential hits a ceiling fast because you're trading time for income without building anything underneath it. The people I know who build real wealth almost always went through a period where they prioritized skill over pay. They took the harder path early, the one that paid less but taught more, because they understood that a person who is genuinely good at something valuable will always be able to make money. A person who is only good at collecting a paycheck will always be dependent on whoever is writing it. This is why skills are the asset that no one can take from you, so you need to build those first and the money will follow. The second one is trying to look successful before being successful, and social media made this problem much worse than it used to be. There's enormous pressure to look like you already arrived before you have built anything real. The car, the trips, the clothes, the aesthetic, and I understand that appeal because the people performing success online get attention, and attention feels like validation. But there's a cost that never shows up in the photos. The money spent on performance is money that could have gone into building something that actually generates returns. And beyond the financial cost, there's a psychological one. When you're performing a version of success you haven't earned yet, you're constantly aware of the gap between what you're projecting and what's actually true. And that gap is exhausting to maintain. The people who build real wealth almost universally live below their means in the early stages. Not forever, but long enough to let what they're building actually compound. That's a word, compound. The next one is trying to do everything alone, and that's a mistake I did too. There's a version of independence that looks like strength, but it's actually just slow. Refusing help, for example, because you want full control, or because you don't want to owe anyone anything, or because you think asking for guidance is a sign of weakness. All of that costs you time you can never get back. Every person who has built something significant got there with help. Mentors, partners, people who had already figured out something they were still figuring out. The difference between someone who takes 10 years to reach a goal and someone who takes 3 is often just a matter of who they were willing to learn from and who they were willing to work alongside. You don't have to do this alone, and there's no price for it. The next lesson is compare your beginning to someone else's middle. This one quietly kills more ambition than almost anything else. You see someone who has been building for 5 or 10 years and you compare where they are right now to where you are in the month 3. And it feels like evidence that you're behind, that you're not good enough, that maybe this is going to work for you, but you're not seeing the same picture. You're seeing their current results and compare them to your current effort. You're not seeing the years of failed attempts, the months where nothing worked, the period where they almost quit. You're not seeing all of that because most people don't post it, simple as that. This comparison is always unfair because it's never between equal points of the journey. So stay in your own lane long enough to actually see what's possible when you compound your effort over time. Lesson number 5 is taking advice from people who haven't gotten where you want to go. Most of the opinions you will receive about what you should do with your life come from people who haven't ever done what you're trying to do. And those opinions aren't malicious, they come from people who usually care about you. But caring about someone and being qualified to advise them on a specific path are 2 completely different things. If you want to build a business online, take advice from people who have built a business online. If you want to learn a skill that pays well, learn from someone who has that skill and has been paid well for it. The people around you who haven't done those things don't have the information you need, no matter how confidently they share it. Be selective about whose voice you let into your head when you make decisions that matter, because that's very dangerous. Lesson number 6 is underestimating the power of your environment. Most people think that success comes out of discipline and motivation, and those things matter, don't get me wrong. But they matter a lot less than most people realize when your environment is working against you. The people around you set the standard for what feels normal. If everyone in your circle thinks that stable job is the goal, starting a business feels reckless. If nobody around you talks about investing, building wealth feels like something other people do. You absorb standards of whoever you spend the most time with. whether you're aware of it or not. I noticed this in my own life too. The periods where I moved the fastest were almost always the periods where I was surrounded by people who were already doing what I wanted to do. Not because they gave me a formula, but because being around them made the thing I was trying to build feel normal and achievable instead of distant and uncertain. You can have the best strategy in the world and still move slowly if your environment is constantly pulling you back toward average. So change who you spend time with and your ceilings change with it. Lesson number 7 is waiting for the right moment. I'm sorry to say that, but the right moment is not coming. I'm sorry. There will always be a reason to wait. You need more knowledge, you need more money, you need more confidence, more clarity, better timing, and every one of those reasons feels legitimate in the moment. But what they all have in common is that they push the start date further into the future. The people who build real wealth don't wait until everything is perfect. They start with what they have, they learn what they couldn't have learned without starting, and they adjust as they go. The learning that happens the first 6 months of actually doing something is worth more than 10 years of preparing to do it. You'll never feel completely ready. That feeling doesn't go when you have more money or more experience or more confidence or more whatever. The people who move forward do it despite the feeling, not after it disappears. So please start now and adjust later. Simple as that. The gap between where most people are and where they want to be is almost always about the decisions they make in the moment somebody is watching. I'm Kayan, and on this channel I break down the real side of building a business online. Subscribe if you want more of this.